chosen ones. Something extraordinary happened while you were sleeping last night. The divine sealed entrances you didn't even know existed. Forces that planned their next move against you woke up today and found every path into your life completely blocked. They're standing outside your world right now, confused and powerless, unable to understand why their usual tactics suddenly stopped working. This isn't random. This isn't coincidence. The Most High has been moving in dimensions you cannot see, building barriers around your destiny that no human force can penetrate. Those closed doors you've been mourning, they were never rejections, they were fortifications. Every relationship that dissolved, every opportunity that vanished, every door that slammed shut was God removing access points that your enemies planned to use against you. Right now there are people who cannot reach you no matter how hard they try. Their calls go unanswered not because you're ignoring them, but because the spiritual frequency between you and them has been permanently severed. They thought they could force their way back into your life, but they're learning something powerful today. When the divine says no, every door in the universe obeys. Listen carefully. What I'm about to reveal will change how you see every closed door from this moment forward. The first thing you need to understand is that your life operates under different rules than everyone else's. Most people walk through open doors without question. They accept whoever enters their world. They believe that accessibility equals opportunity. But you were never designed to live that way. Your calling demands protection that ordinary people don't need, because your purpose threatens forces that ordinary people never encounter. Think about the fortress built for royalty. The king doesn't live in a house with open doors. Guards stand watch, walls rise high, access is controlled because what happens inside those walls matters to an entire kingdom. That's your reality now. The divine has appointed guardians at every entrance to your life, and they're turning away everyone who doesn't carry the proper authorization. You've felt it, haven't you? The strange quietness, the sudden distance between you and people who used to demand your attention constantly. That's not loneliness, that's the sound of divine construction. God is building around you while you sleep, erecting walls that look invisible to you but appear solid as mountains to those trying to breach your peace. Some of these closed doors confused you deeply. That job offer that evaporated at the last minute, that friendship that ended without explanation, that romantic possibility that seemed perfect until it suddenly wasn't. You questioned yourself. You wondered what you did wrong. You tried to force those doors back open because you couldn't see what was waiting on the other side. But God saw. He watched your enemies gathering on the other side of those doors, preparing traps disguised as opportunities. He witnessed their true intentions, the harm they planned to cause, the ways they intended to drain your energy and derail your mission. And in his mercy, he closed those doors before you could walk through them into disaster. Your enemies made a critical mistake. They underestimated whose child you are. They looked at you and saw someone they could manipulate, control, or use for their own purposes. They didn't realize they were dealing with someone marked by the divine, someone whose path is watched and guarded by forces that move between worlds. They thought the rules that worked on others would work on you. They were spectacularly wrong. The divine sent them warnings, dreams they ignored, signs they dismissed, opportunities to turn back that they rejected, multiple chances to leave you alone and focus on their own journey. But pride made them deaf, arrogance made them blind. They convinced themselves they were clever enough to bypass spiritual law, smart enough to outsmart God himself. Imagine someone standing before a massive sealed door, pounding their fists bloody, demanding entry. The door doesn't move, it doesn't even shake. They bring tools, they bring leverage, they bring other people to help them push. Nothing works. The door was sealed by hands they cannot see, locked by power they don't understand. That's what's happening to everyone who tried to force their way into your protected space. Some of them are people you used to trust. This truth stings, but you need to hear it. Not everyone who smiled at you wished you well. Not everyone who praised you wanted to see you rise. Some people stayed close because they were studying you, learning your weaknesses, waiting for the right moment to strike. They thought their patience would pay off. They thought their access would last forever. But the divine knows who carries poison hidden behind friendly faces. He recognizes wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. And when the time came to elevate you to your next level, he removed them from your life so quickly that you barely had time to process what happened. One day they were there, the next day they were gone. The door between you closed with such finality that no amount of effort could reopen it. This protection runs deeper than you realize. It's not just about keeping bad people away. It's about preserving the purity of your purpose. Your calling requires a specific frequency. Certain energies cannot exist in the same space as your destiny. If those energies remained in your life, they would create interference that would make it impossible for you to hear divine guidance clearly. Think of your life as a sacred temple. Not everyone deserves to enter sacred spaces. Some people carry too much chaos, others bring too much doubt. Some drain energy like vampires in the night, others spread negativity like poison in a well. God looked at your temple and decided it was time for a purification. He cleared out everything that didn't belong, sealed the doors behind them, and left you in blessed solitude. That solitude might feel uncomfortable right now. Humans are social creatures. We crave connection. We want people around us. But sometimes the greatest gift the divine can give you is the space to hear your own thoughts without interference. Sometimes you need the silence to finally understand what your own voice sounds like. Your enemies are experiencing something entirely different right now. While you're being elevated in private, they're facing consequences in public. The doors closing in your face are opening in theirs. Opportunities they took for granted are vanishing. Relationships they depended on are crumbling. Blessings they assumed were guaranteed are being revoked. They're tasting the same confusion and rejection they tried to feed you. This is not you taking revenge. You didn't lift a finger against them. This is spiritual law correcting itself. The universe balancing scales that were tilted too far in one direction. Every action creates an equal reaction. Every violation of divine boundaries creates a debt that must be paid. Your enemies are learning this lesson right now, and it's costing them everything. They ignored warnings because they thought warnings were for other people. They pushed against closed doors because they believed their will was stronger than divine will. They schemed and plotted because they convinced themselves that intelligence could overcome spiritual authority. Every assumption was wrong. Every calculation failed. Now they're standing in the ruins of their own making, finally understanding that some doors were closed to protect them from their own destruction. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. But here's what they still don't understand. The doors didn't close because you were weak. The doors closed because you were chosen. There's a profound difference. Weakness invites predators. Being chosen invites protection. Your enemies looked at those closed doors and thought they represented your vulnerability. They didn't realize those doors represented God's personal investment in your success. When the divine marks someone as chosen, that person enters a different covenant. The rules change, the protection intensifies. What looked like an easy target becomes an impenetrable fortress. People who thought they could waltz into your life whenever they pleased suddenly find themselves locked out permanently, unable to comprehend what shifted. Some of your enemies are still trying right now. They're attempting different tactics. They're reaching out through mutual friends. They're creating situations designed to force contact. They're manufacturing emergencies that require your attention. Every attempt fails because the spiritual barrier between you cannot be crossed by human effort. They're exhausting themselves fighting a battle they already lost. Watch what happens next. Their frustration will turn to anger. Their anger will turn to desperation. Their desperation will reveal their true nature to everyone watching. The mask they wore in your presence will slip. Others will finally see what God saw from the beginning. Your enemies will expose themselves through their own actions, and you won't have to say a single word in your defense. This divine closure serves multiple purposes simultaneously. It protects you from immediate harm. It removes distractions from your path. It creates space for new relationships aligned with your destiny. And it teaches your enemies a lesson they'll never forget about respecting spiritual boundaries. God is working everything together for your benefit while ensuring that justice is served. The closed doors also mark a transition point in your journey. You're not the same person you were when those doors were open. You've grown, you've evolved, you've awakened to truths that most people never discover. Going backward through those doors would be impossible even if they reopened, because you simply don't fit through them anymore. You've become too large for small spaces. This is why you must stop trying to revisit closed chapters. Stop wondering what would have happened if that door had stayed open. Stop questioning God's decisions about who belongs in your life. He sees dimensions of reality that remain hidden from human perception. He knows which person would have betrayed you next year. He knows which opportunity would have bankrupted your spirit. He knows which relationship would have destroyed your calling. Trust the closed doors more than you trust your own judgment. Your perspective is limited by time and space. You see only this moment. God sees eternity. You see one person's actions. God sees their heart. You see a missed opportunity. God sees a dodged bullet. The closed doors are evidence of divine wisdom operating on your behalf. Right now, someone who tried to enter your world is sitting in darkness wondering what went wrong. They replayed every conversation. They analyzed every interaction. They cannot figure out why their usual influence stopped working on you. What they don't know is that the divine placed a seal on your life that nullifies manipulative tactics. Their words no longer land. Their tricks no longer work. You've become immune to their poison. This immunity didn't develop overnight. It came through every trial you survived, every betrayal you overcame, every closed door you accepted. Each experience taught you discernment. Each lesson strengthened your spiritual armor. Now you stand guarded, not just by divine intervention, but by your own hard-won wisdom. You recognize red flags immediately. You feel wrong energy before it gets close. You trust your instincts because they've been refined by fire. Your enemies hate this version of you. They preferred you vulnerable, accessible, easy to influence. They miss the old you who gave endless chances, who ignored obvious signs, who chose to see good in everyone regardless of their actions. That person no longer exists. The closed doors didn't just keep enemies out. They forced you to become someone stronger, someone wiser, someone impossible to deceive. Some people from your past will attempt to return. They'll claim they've changed. They'll apologize for past behavior. They'll promise different outcomes this time. The door will remain closed. Not because you're unforgiving, but because God is protective. He knows that leopards don't change their spots. He knows that people who violated your boundaries once will do it again if given the opportunity. The door stays closed for your protection, regardless of how convincing their words sound. This might make you seem cold to those who don't understand your journey. Let them think what they want. Your calling doesn't require their approval. Your destiny doesn't need their validation. The divine has set you on a path that only makes sense to those walking similar roads. Everyone else will judge from the outside, unable to comprehend why you guard your peace so fiercely. The greatest gift these closed doors have given you is clarity. You finally understand that not every relationship deserves preservation. Not every connection serves your highest good. Not every person who wants access to you deserves it. This clarity makes you powerful in ways your enemies never anticipated. You're no longer movable by guilt. You're no longer accessible through manipulation. You've become sovereign in your own life. Sovereignty is what your enemies feared most. When you were confused and seeking approval, they could control you. When you questioned your own judgment, they could influence your decisions. But now you stand firm in divine authority. You know who you are. You know whose you are. You recognize your worth. That combination makes you untouchable. The doors that closed were not punishment, they were promotion. God removed everyone operating below your frequency. He cleared space for relationships that match your evolution. He eliminated distractions so you could focus on assignments that matter. Every closed door elevated you to a new level where old energy simply cannot exist. Some of you are waiting for permission to celebrate these closed doors. You feel guilty for being relieved when certain people disappeared from your life. You think you should feel sad about relationships ending. You wonder if something is wrong with you for experiencing peace after doors closed. Nothing is wrong with you. You're experiencing the natural response to divine alignment. Your spirit recognizes protection, even when your mind questions it. Celebrate the closed doors. Thank God for every relationship that ended. Praise Him for every opportunity that vanished. Each closed door represented the divine loving you enough to override your choices when those choices would have harmed you. He stepped in when you couldn't see clearly. He decided when you lacked wisdom. He protected when you would have exposed yourself. Your enemies are realizing right now that they picked the wrong person to oppose. They thought you were alone. They didn't know you had backup in realms they cannot perceive. They assumed victory would be easy. They're discovering that fighting someone protected by the divine is like fighting the ocean with bare hands, exhausting, futile, destructive only to themselves. Watch them carefully now. Some will pretend the closed doors don't bother them. They'll act like they never wanted access anyway. Others will spread stories to explain away their rejection. They'll claim they chose to leave. They'll rewrite history to preserve their ego. None of it matters. The truth exists independent of their narrative. The doors are closed. They cannot enter. That reality stands regardless of what story they tell themselves. The most powerful aspect of divine closure is its permanence. These doors don't swing open again during moments of weakness. They don't crack when you feel lonely. They remain sealed because God's decisions are final. He doesn't second-guess himself. He doesn't revisit choices already made. When he closes a door, that door becomes a wall. This permanence gives you freedom you've never experienced before. You can finally stop looking over your shoulder. You can release the anxiety about certain people returning. You can let go of the fear that past energy will infiltrate your present peace. The doors are sealed. The enemies are locked out. You're safe in ways you've never been safe before. Some of you needed to hear this today because you've been questioning recent losses. You've wondered if you made mistakes that caused relationships to end. You've replayed conversations searching for where you went wrong. Stop torturing yourself with false responsibility. Some doors closed because God moved them, not because you failed. Some people left because they were escorted out by divine intervention, not because you weren't enough. You are enough. You have always been enough. The closed doors proved it. If you weren't valuable, God wouldn't guard you so carefully. If you weren't important, He wouldn't build walls around your life. If you weren't chosen, He wouldn't close doors in the faces of those trying to harm you. The very fact that you're experiencing this level of divine protection confirms everything you suspected about your purpose. Your purpose is real. Your calling is legitimate. Your destiny is secured. The closed doors are physical evidence of spiritual reality. You're not imagining your importance. You're not exaggerating your value. The divine confirmed both by taking direct action to protect what He's building through you. This is your moment to shift from questioning to trusting. Stop asking why doors closed. Start asking what doors are opening. Stop mourning who left. Start noticing who's arriving. Stop focusing on what you lost. Start recognizing what you gained. The closed doors freed you from bondage disguised as connection. They released you from draining relationships masked as love. They liberated you from toxic environments packaged as opportunity. Freedom always costs something. Sometimes it costs comfort. Sometimes it costs companionship. Sometimes it costs the familiar. But what you gain through divine closure is worth infinitely more than what you release. You gain clarity. You gain peace. You gain alignment. You gain access to relationships and opportunities that could never coexist with the energy you released. Your new season is beginning right now. Behind the closed doors of your past stands everything you've outgrown. Ahead of you stretches territory you've never explored. The journey forward requires traveling light. God removed the weight you were carrying disguised as people. He stripped away the burden you were shouldering masked as loyalty. Now you can move freely toward everything waiting for you. The doors that closed in their faces opened in yours. While they're locked out of your world, you're walking into new dimensions they'll never see. While they're scrambling to regain access they lost, you're discovering access you never knew existed. The divine orchestrated a perfect exchange. Their loss became your gain. Their closed doors became your open heavens. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your becoming. The closed doors marked the death of who you used to be and the birth of who you're meant to be. Stand in this truth, walk in this authority, rest in this protection. You are exactly where you need to be, and those who cannot enter your world anymore never belonged there in the first place. The thing about divine protection is that it doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It moves quietly in the background of your life, making adjustments you won't notice until months or years later. That person who suddenly stopped calling, God was protecting you from the betrayal they were planning. That job you didn't get, the divine was saving you from the toxic environment that would have broken your spirit. Those closed doors were mercy dressed as disappointment. Your enemies are experiencing something they've never encountered before. They're used to getting what they want through persistence. They've succeeded in wearing people down, breaking through boundaries, forcing their way into spaces they weren't invited. But your space operates under different legislation. The usual rules don't apply. The typical tactics fail. They're discovering that chosen ones exist in a protected class that their manipulation cannot penetrate. Right now, some of them are consulting with others, trying to understand what happened. They're asking mutual friends about you. They're searching for vulnerabilities they can exploit. They're testing different approaches to see if they can find a crack in the wall. Every attempt bounces off invisible barriers. Every strategy crumbles before execution. They're fighting a battle in dimensions they don't even believe exist. This frustration will cost them more than they realize. While they're obsessing over accessing you, they're missing opportunities in their own lives. While they're scheming about ways to break through your boundaries, they're neglecting relationships that actually matter. While they're wasting energy trying to force open closed doors, their own doors are closing one by one. The obsession with controlling you is destroying them from the inside. God doesn't just protect you from your enemies. He uses your enemies to protect you from yourself. Every time you considered going back, he reminded you of their true nature. Every time you thought about reaching out, he showed you another red flag. Every time you almost reopened that door, he sent confirmation that it needed to stay closed. Your enemies proved through their own actions why they don't deserve access to your life. Some of these people are family members. That makes it harder, doesn't it? You were raised to believe that family always deserves access, that blood is thicker than water, that you must maintain connections regardless of how toxic they become. But the divine is teaching you a revolutionary truth. Biology doesn't grant unlimited access to your peace. Shared DNA doesn't excuse destructive behavior. Family titles don't override spiritual boundaries. The closed doors in your family line are often the most necessary and the most painful. These are people who watched you grow up. They know your history. They've seen you at your weakest. And some of them have used that knowledge as ammunition. They've weaponized your past against your future. They've reminded you of old failures to keep you from embracing new victories. God closed those doors because he needs you free from the voices that speak death over your destiny. Walking away from family members who don't support your calling takes a courage most people never develop. It goes against everything society teaches. It feels like betrayal even when you're the one being betrayed. But your assignment is more important than their approval. Your purpose outweighs their opinion. The divine didn't give you this calling to abandon it for the comfort of family members who refuse to see who you've become. Some of your relatives are angry right now because you're no longer controllable. They're upset because their words don't move you anymore. They're frustrated because you've stopped seeking their validation. The closed door between you and them represents your spiritual maturity. You've graduated from needing their approval. You've evolved beyond their understanding. And that terrifies them because it means they've lost their power over you. Let them be angry, let them gossip, let them create narratives that paint you as the villain. Your reputation in their eyes is irrelevant to your destiny. The divine doesn't need their endorsement to promote you. He doesn't require their blessing to elevate you. Their opinion of you has zero impact on what God is doing through you. The closed door protects you from caring too much about perspectives that matter too little. There are also former friends standing outside your closed doors right now. These separations might hurt the most because you chose these people. You invested time, energy, and trust into relationships you thought would last forever. You shared secrets, you created memories, you built history together, and now there's only silence and distance where intimacy used to exist. But friendship isn't measured by duration, it's measured by alignment. Some people are meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. They served a purpose during a specific chapter of your journey. That chapter is over now. The person you're becoming requires different companions than the person you used to be. The divine removed misaligned friendships to make room for soul-level connections that match your current frequency. Your old friends don't understand this. They think you've changed for the worse. They believe you're acting superior. They've convinced themselves that your evolution is a personal rejection of them. They cannot comprehend that you're not moving away from them specifically. You're moving toward your purpose generally, and they simply aren't equipped for the journey ahead. Some of these friends will try to guilt you into reopening the door. They'll remind you of good times you shared. They'll reference inside jokes and meaningful moments. They'll appeal to your nostalgia and your loyalty. None of it will work because God has given you spiritual amnesia about certain relationships. You remember the facts, but you no longer feel the emotional attachment. The soul tie has been severed by divine intervention. This is supernatural grace operating in your life. Without it, you'd still be bound to people who drain you. You'd still be trying to revive friendships that died for good reason. You'd still be sacrificing your future to honor a past that no longer serves you. But God loved you enough to cut the cords that kept you tethered to the wrong people. The closed doors aren't just barriers, they're liberation. Professional connections have closed too. That mentor who suddenly became unavailable, that colleague who stopped returning your messages, that business partner who dissolved the partnership without warning. You thought these relationships were essential to your success. You believed these doors needed to stay open for your career to advance. The divine had different plans. God was removing you from structures built on foundations that would eventually crumble. He saw the corruption you couldn't see. He knew about the coming collapse you couldn't predict. He extracted you from situations that would have taken you down with them. Those professional closed doors saved your reputation, your finances, and your future opportunities. What felt like career suicide was actually career protection. Now you're being repositioned for connections that align with where God is taking you, not where you've been. The new doors opening require the old doors to be closed. You cannot walk through both simultaneously. The divine forced your hand by closing doors you would have kept open out of fear or obligation. He made the decision you were too afraid to make yourself. Your romantic life has experienced divine closure too. That relationship that ended seemingly out of nowhere. That person who was perfect on paper but wrong in spirit. That connection that felt right until suddenly it didn't. You questioned why love kept slipping through your fingers. You wondered if you were destined to be alone. You didn't understand that God was closing doors to protect your heart from people who would have broken it beyond repair. Some of those people are still trying to come back. They reach out during your vulnerable moments. They appear in your dreams. They text you at midnight with apologies and promises. The door remains closed because the divine knows what you don't. He knows they haven't changed. He knows they're not reaching out from genuine transformation. He knows they're returning because other options failed, not because they finally recognized your value. You deserve someone who sees your worth from the beginning, not someone who realizes it after losing you. You deserve someone who chooses you consistently, not someone who returns when they're lonely. You deserve someone who matches your energy, not someone you have to convince to treat you right. The closed doors in romance are God's way of saying you've settled enough. The next door that opens will reveal the love you actually deserve. While you're waiting, the divine is working on you. He's healing wounds you didn't know you carried. He's breaking generational patterns that would have repeated in your next relationship. He's elevating your standards so you'll never again accept less than his best for you. The closed doors created the space necessary for this inner work. You needed the solitude, you needed the silence, you needed the separation from romantic distraction to finally focus on your own healing. Your enemies in romance are panicking right now. They thought you'd always be available, always waiting, always hoping they'd change their mind. They took your love for granted because it was freely given. Now they're realizing that divine closure is irreversible. They can't manipulate their way back in. They can't apologize their way through sealed doors. They lost access permanently, and that reality is devastating them. Let them feel that devastation. Let them understand what they lost. Let them spend sleepless nights replaying their mistakes. You're not responsible for their emotional journey. You're not required to reopen doors just because they finally appreciate what was behind them. The divine closed those doors in their face for your protection. Their regret doesn't override his decision. Some of you are feeling guilty about the peace you're experiencing. You think you should miss these people more than you do. You believe something is wrong with you for thriving in their absence. There is nothing wrong with you. You're experiencing the natural result of divine alignment. When wrong people leave, right peace enters. When toxic connections end, healthy space begins. Your peace isn't evidence of coldness, it's evidence of freedom. This peace will confuse your enemies more than anything else. They expected you to fall apart without them. They predicted you'd come crawling back, begging for another chance. They imagined you sitting in darkness, mourning their absence. Instead, you're glowing, you're growing, you're accessing levels of joy you never reached when they had access to you. Your thriving is the greatest testimony to why those doors needed to close. The divine is strategic in his timing. He didn't close these doors randomly. He waited until you were strong enough to handle the separation. He prepared you through previous trials. He built your resilience through past disappointments. By the time he shut those final doors, you were ready even if you didn't feel ready. Your strength was sufficient even when you felt weak. Now let me put you onto something real. Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Right now, new people are being positioned to enter your life through doors you don't even see yet. They're being prepared for you just as you're being prepared for them. They're learning lessons that will make them compatible with your frequency. They're developing character that matches your evolution. The divine is orchestrating connections that will blow your mind with their perfect timing and alignment, but these new people cannot enter while old energy still has access. The closed doors weren't just about removal, they were about preparation. God was clearing your space, cleaning your atmosphere, purifying your environment. He was creating room for relationships built on mutual respect, genuine support and spiritual alignment. The new cannot coexist with the old. Death must precede resurrection. Your enemies don't understand that their exit was necessary for your entrance into destiny. They think they're the main characters in this story. They believe your life revolves around their presence or absence. They cannot comprehend that they were minor characters in a much larger narrative. Supporting cast in a production where you're the lead. The divine wrote them out of your story because their role was complete. Some of these people will try to rewrite history. They'll claim they chose to leave. They'll act like the closed doors were their decision. They'll spread stories that position them as the ones who walked away from you. Let them have their version of events. You know the truth. God knows the truth. That's all that matters. Their false narrative doesn't change the reality that they're locked out permanently. The most important thing you need to understand right now is that closed doors are not failures. They're not evidence that you did something wrong. They're not punishment for past mistakes. Closed doors are divine strategy. They're spiritual warfare fought on your behalf. They're love expressed through protection. Every closed door is God saying, I love you too much to let you stay in that situation. You're standing at a threshold right now. Behind you are all the closed doors representing everything you've released. Ahead of you is territory you've never explored. The temptation is to keep looking back, wondering about what might have been, but the divine is calling you forward. He's inviting you to step fully into this new season without the weight of past connections holding you down. This forward movement requires trust at levels you haven't accessed before. You must trust that God knew what he was doing when he closed those doors. You must trust that better is coming, even when you can't see it yet. You must trust that divine timing is perfect, even when it feels painfully slow. This trust is what separates chosen ones from everyone else. Most people trust God when they understand his plan. Chosen ones trust God, especially when his plan makes no sense. Your enemies will continue trying to force their way back in. This won't stop immediately. They'll test the doors periodically, hoping something changed. They'll look for weaknesses in your boundaries. They'll wait for moments when you're vulnerable. The door will remain closed because it's not held shut by your strength. It's sealed by divine authority. Their efforts are futile. Their persistence is pointless. They're fighting a battle that was decided before they even knew it had begun. Meanwhile, you keep moving forward. You keep growing. You keep evolving. You keep ascending to levels they'll never reach because they're too busy trying to drag you back down. The closed doors freed you to fly. Don't waste that freedom looking back at people who are earthbound by choice. Your wings were made for heights they'll never understand. Stand firm in this truth today. The closed doors in their faces are open heavens over yours. What was denied to them is being poured out on you. What they lost permanently, you gained eternally. The divine didn't just close doors to protect you, he closed doors to promote you. This is your season of unprecedented blessing, unstoppable elevation, and undeniable favor. Those closed doors were never about what you lost. They were always about what you're about to gain.